Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Veterinary Business Podcast, your ultimate resource for developing a successful veterinary practice and career. I'm Michael Walker, leadership coach, consultant, and one of the co-hosts of the Veterinary Business Podcast. On this podcast, we bring you insights and expertise from industry-leading doctors, experts, and thought leaders. We cover a wide range of topics, including practice management, marketing strategies, leadership development, finance, HR best practices, AI, law, and much more. Whether you're a practicing veterinarian, a practice owner, practice manager, or a student studying to be a veterinarian, this podcast is tailored to help you navigate the unique challenges and opportunities in the business of veterinary medicine. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to visit the website that hosts our podcast, which is www.veterinarybusinessinstitute.com, for additional resources and tools to support your growth. And remember, you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, YouTube Music, Spotify, and other popular podcast platforms. Well, today I'm thrilled to welcome Hunter Scott, a dynamic leader and financial strategist with over a decade of experience helping businesses achieve sustainable growth. As a certified public accountant and partner at Strata Cloud Accountants, Hunter specializes in providing outsourced accounting solutions and CFO consulting to small businesses, empowering them to unlock their full potential. Hunter's expertise in financial strategy, tax planning, and software implementation has made him a trusted advisor across various industries. His passion for leveraging technology and data-driven insights to streamline operations and drive profitability sets him apart. Beyond his professional achievements, Hunter is committed to demystifying accounting for business owners and enabling them to make informed, practical, and impactful decisions. Our topic today that we're going to be talking with Hunter on is saving struggling veterinary practices. So, Hunter, if you're okay, welcome, and I'm just going to jump right in with some questions, if that's okay with you.
That's perfectly fine.
It is great to have you here. And I also know that with Hunter that he has a real passion for family, has a passion for his country, and he has a passion for working with a lot of different clients, but we're just really excited to have him here in the Veterinary Business podcast. So the first question I got to ask you, it's always my favorite question to lead off with. It's kind of like, can you share with us what the genesis of your passion is for financial management and accounting? There's a lot of us that just may not get that. You know I'm one of them. I've never been a numbers guy. In fact, they've been throwing, but I'm always intrigued, and I know our listeners would love to know just how did that passion for financial management and accounting come to be?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me on, Michael. Excited to be here and talk through some of these topics. But yeah, I think, the passion started a generation ago with my dad. He was always in finance, and funny enough, growing up, I always said the one thing I wouldn't be when I grew up was an accountant. And so kind of funny how it turned out. The reason for that was because we moved several times, and I thought that was the norm. And but once I kind of got into college, actually started off pursuing becoming a pastor. The big reason for that was because I wanted to help people. And as I, navigated college and that path, ended up falling into some accounting courses and found out, man, I'm good at this. It's fun, and realized, hey, there's a lot of opportunity here to really accomplish what I'm looking to do, which is to help people. And so that's really the genesis for how it all came about. Is how can I come into these businesses, which are often run by a family or an aspiring entrepreneur. How can I come in there, bring some clarity to what they're doing, and help them, kind of direct it into a direction that they want to see that accomplishes their family goals, their personal goals, all the things that they got into it to do and to accomplish, instead of just kind of being a slave to the business, and not really, getting out of it what they want.
And I think it's thank you for sharing that. You always wanted to be an accountant. That's kind of funny. It's funny.
Yeah.
I remember just when you said that, I had this exact thought. I remember the first thing I wanted to be, I wanted to get the haircut, and I wanted to change my name to Ringo, and I wanted to be a drummer.
Nice.
That was it. That was my thing.
Nice.
And my parents bought me a guitar because they didn't want drums in the house. But that's a whole other
Nice.
story.
Yeah.
I did
No,
come out
I
and wanted to be a
understand.
drummer. But what's interesting in our story, I didn't know that you just shared. I'm also a pastor, and
Okay. Very cool.
it's interesting when you say that desire to help, to make a difference. I
Yeah.
to me, I have a saying, and you'll appreciate if it is that my whole emphasis is about making my ceiling somebody else's floor.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That idea of being able to raise things up, and as
Yep.
pastors, we can do it from a perspective, healthy pastors, we can do it from perspective that it's not about a religion, it's about relationships. And
Yeah.
it's about the broadest context of that, because every
Yeah.
relationship is valuable. And I love that.
Yeah.
And to bring that in, I have a friend who's a CPA as well that you sound just like him. So it's kind of
Yeah. That's
fun.
really cool.
Yeah,
Actually, do you mind if I share a Bible verse?
sure.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of paraphrase it. So Jeremiah 33, this is very much a life verse for me, and it talks about, it's in that time where Israel has been destroyed, and there's some prophecy being given, right? And Jeremiah is prophesying that, and the Lord saying that, hey, this place that everybody calls a waste, I'm going to make it into a place of rejoicing and thanksgiving, and that's a real life mission for me is, hey, this place that doesn't seem like much now, how do we take it to a place that is something that's awesome. And so that's both personally and professionally for me, that's a real life mission.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I think it's interesting, like, because we get caught. I do a lot of work as a leadership coach. I work as a professional mediator. I'm often in rooms. I do primarily business and partners mediation. I'm dealing with companies a lot. And it's
Yeah.
interesting. The common denominator of the problem, well, it's twofold. One would be is that people just simply don't know how to meet other people where they're at because they don't have enough
Yeah.
self-awareness. If you don't have enough self-awareness, then you can't do very much on other awareness, and the conflict escalation. It turns from somebody not making coffee in the morning, it turns into I want to sell my shares and leave the company. It's so
Yeah.
ironic. But the other part of it that is critical, and I seek often, it's lack of financial understanding. They haven't got enough baseline, and you talk about it on your website. You talk about just having that organic knowledge. You don't have to. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be a CPA anytime soon. My attention to detail will not serve us well, but I
Yeah.
have a CPA on my team because I know that, and I think so. I know you're going to talk about that a bit, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, but again, I told you I knew we were going to get into things here, Hunter.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
let's just another question for you. Just kind of, I think we're talking about today is about saving struggling veterinarian practices. Sometimes it's if I would say saving is for sure important, but sometimes it's identifying
Yeah.
struggling, and
Hmm.
it's not about nothing. It's not
Absolutely.
lost yet, but it
Yep.
could. And I think
Yeah.
the next question we talk about are what are the first steps to take when a veterinary practice is facing financial difficulties. Maybe we can unpack just what that looks like from both perspectives, the difficulties, and then
Yeah.
the kind of steps they take. Does that make sense, Hunter?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can jump into it. I mean, in terms of kind of defining what difficulty could look like, very practically, this could look like cash flow issues. So struggling to, make that next payroll, struggling to, just ensure that there's money in the bank when it's supposed to be there to pay your bills. That at a very basic level, that would be a difficulty, right? It also could look like, how do I turn this organization into something that serves me instead of me just always serving it? I feel like I'm caught in this wheel of just always working, and I'm wearing so many different hats, and I just don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. That very well could be, a difficulty. Um, So those would be probably, or just how do I make this profitable? Is also maybe a third difficulty. Those would be kind of the three that maybe I see most frequently in businesses is people expressing those. And so, what do first steps look like? First step, I always say is kind of what you just said, Michael, is we kind of have to know where we are today. We need to know where our starting point is so that we can even build from here. So in my world, that looks like having good bookkeeping and financials, being done on a regular basis. So having the data being entered, having it being tied out, reviewing those financials, and understanding what they mean. That way we even understand, okay, where are we at today? And so that's always for me the first step. You'd be surprised how many businesses we come into, and even pretty large organizations to where that is not being done, and they haven't seen financials in some cases many years. We had one client come to us within the last couple of years, and we were able to get a few years of accounting work caught up for them, and they had said, when we were all done, they told me that they hadn't seen good financials in 13 years of running their company.
Wow.
And they were a pretty sizable organization too, people on payroll, people they're paying, and, kind of wondering where's the cash going on any given day. And so the first step to solve that is to know where you are today.
The irony of what you just said is that if we said, okay, what would be things that would significantly contribute to stress levels?
Yeah.
And one of them we're going to say is going to be money, right? Who's not going to see that? At least it is for me. Having had my own company, an online company, and actually are getting wiped out in COVID, but we reinvented ourselves, and that's a whole other story. And it's not my podcast. But it's but the whole idea, the making payroll. I mean, as soon as you said that, I remember those days. Am I going to make payroll? Thinking, I'm going to have to put money on a credit card to do this, and just moving it.
Yeah.
But I also know that for myself, because that time I really wasn't comfortable. I understood numbers, but I wasn't comfortable with arguably the cash drivers of the organization. I really didn't know where my money was going, how it was moving, and so I just stick my head in the sand. And and because I could, and as an entrepreneur, and a lot of entrepreneurs, we do that. We'll just go find more money.
Yes.
And I can get more money. I can sell ice. I'm up here in Canada, but we can. But the reality is, what does that do? It just compounds the stress.
Yep.
And I think what you're just saying there. If someone's listening to this, thinking, what's the rate? Okay, I'm identifying with what you guys are saying. What does that look like right now? What could I do right now to stop this? Yeah, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that stress, and I don't know what to do. And what I just heard you say is, here's some things they are. What is the starting point? Obviously, getting an accountant, getting somebody in, working through the numbers, I guess, is what would make the obvious. Is there anything else that we should touch on?
Yes, I'll give you what I have found to be a very important step 2. So step 1, know where you are today. So find the accountant, find the bookkeeper that can help you do that. Step 2, give yourself a little hope. And so what I have found that very practically gives clients a little hope is to have some sort of forecast in place and it really shows what is possible. I'll give you a very classic example of ours is, we were working with a small company who was exactly what you just described, Michael, struggling to make payroll, growing revenue, and feeling like, all right, I feel like I'm doing good there. This individual had a wait list of clients that spanned over a year. He was so good at bringing in revenue, but struggling to make payroll, he himself wasn't paying himself anything, and really just struggling to pay all the other overheads of the business. And we were able to come in, did exactly that. We cleaned up the books, we got him to a starting point, and then we established a forecast that showed him, okay, if we can accomplish the revenue that you already have plans for, And if we can control these costs and maybe hire a key person to help you with your operations, or for him, or whoever it might be for you, and then controlled your overhead a little bit, we were able to show them like, hey, you within a matter of a year, you could be making 100 to 200,000 a year, which from going several years of not making anything to making potentially multiple six figures in his case was super impactful. And his reaction was probably the best reaction I've ever gotten from showing somebody numbers. He was silent for a moment, and then he goes, okay, can we stop here and have this same meeting? And you say that same thing tomorrow with my wife on the call. And so it just it got me excited, because like, yeah, that's what it's all about. That now this family business now has a little bit of hope of, okay, I know where I'm at. I can see a light at the end of the tunnel. And now I just I have to make the operational changes to be able to get there. And so those would be the two things. If you're in that spot of, wanting to take the first steps when it comes to your finances, I know where you are today. And then I'd put together a plan that offers you some hope.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that, excuse me, that whole idea of like hope has many dimensions. I could hope I don't get hit by a truck today, or I could have a hope that's a little bit bigger than that. But I also, there's a personal hope, and that the personal hope is, and you mentioned it at the outset, people got into this, but now all of a sudden, all I seem to do is work. I don't get paid. We're notorious for not paying ourselves last, and then if there's anything there, but having said that, there's also this idea of what happened to the original passion. My opening question to you today was, what are you passionate about? And I think it's so important in this journey is to go back and revisit that. What got you into this? Why are you passionate about it? And bring that back to the forefront, and then reverse engineer that back to today with the kind of financial support we're talking about. And the next question I want to talk to you about is cash flow. And this is a killer. I mentioned cash flows. Like, I couldn't figure out where my money was going, but once I realized what required cash and what brought cash in, and started to really understand receivables and payables and understand inventory and all these pieces, boy, it started to get to be fun to manage cash flow. So the question I obviously want to ask you is, how can cash flow management play a role in stabilizing a struggling practice? And that, of course, that's where the struggle is there's not enough money in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. Cash flow management, and I guess to define maybe what cash flow management is, or what we do when it comes to, okay, how do I actually manage my cash flow, is we kind of keep three working things. We have a financial model that projects out your business model, maybe over the next couple years, maybe over the current year. There's budgets and forecasts, which are kind of more focused on the next 12 months. And then there's short-term cash flow projections, where we focus over the next quarter, week by week. And so what we're able to do, and what the audience can do, is if you are able to project out your cash flow, say just even over the next 13 weeks, that might sound like a lot, but to break it down super basic, right? It's your payroll. When's the credit card bill coming out? What is maybe like an average credit card bill? When are some of those, recurring rent or whatever it may be, payments that are coming out? And just having a spreadsheet that shows, okay, I think I'm going to bring in this much, and that part's the biggest estimate. Here's my known expenses. Here's a couple other things that may happen. Like, I know, for example, maybe I'm going to go buy a big piece of equipment in February, or whatever it may be. What is my bank account going to say at the end, right? And what this allows you to do is it allows you to foresee some of those issues coming in, of when you might be running low, and how to navigate that. What expenses can I delay in order to do that? How might I be able to collect more sooner so that I can navigate that? Do I need to maybe do a line of credit? Do I need to take less out of the business this quarter and to navigate that? That's when you actually get to be proactive, because you can see it. right? I see that it's coming. I see that maybe this month is a low, historically a low month, and so I can see that this is going to be a challenging cash flow month. So I can, do X, Y, Z to now, be able to navigate some of that.
Beautiful. And as you're saying, if any of you are listening, and I'm just going to make the assumption, there may very well be somebody on the call, Hunter, who's like right in this hotspot that we're talking about. It's scary. It's scary as heck. I mean, been there, done that, and if you are, when you just heard Hunter explain that, when he just unpacked it, I guarantee that your stress meter went from DEFCON 3 to DEFCON 2 or 1. Like there's a because what he did is just broke this thing down. So like if I want to suddenly play competitive football and I need to up my bench by 150 pound bench, I could look at that and say, "Oh, I could never do that," and it's true. Today I couldn't, but I can I do 325 over a year of working up to it? Absolutely. But I need to understand the dynamics that are going to be in there and working all the little pieces. And I think that's the thing, is that we have this thing, I'm afraid of change, but we're not actually really afraid of change. We're just not keen on the transition. And the transition in this case is just starting. Yeah. And starting small, just being willing to be aware. I have a couple of questions I always like to ask somebody. I said, so what's at risk to try this?
Yeah.
Well, but that's an interesting question, and there's an answer, obviously. And this is, but the more important question: what's at risk not to? Yeah, that's the 100%. Question. And really, if we really stop, it's just fear of failure, But the fight, it's going to fail if we don't. I hate to say it. I mean, again, as a professional mediator, I understand the power of the amygdala and understanding how fight and flee functions and everything. But there's part of this wiring for us emotionally that just gets us caught. And what Hunter's laying out is a strategy that strips away, moves from an emotional perspective to a principle-based perspective. And how do you start that? And I love that. And I think, so if we, the interesting thing is that you had to get here. Like you didn't just suddenly wake up the next morning. Well, actually, it's funny. I mentioned I had my leadership coaching company. We have had offices all through Canada, United States. We were all live event business. COVID hit, and 98% of our business overnight. Yeah, reinventing it and created it all online, and it went well. And I'm a Canadian, but an American company bought it, and hence I get to fun doing stuff like this now. But awesome. But this idea, but things kind of built up and things happened. So I think a good question would be to consider right now would be, what are some of the common mistakes that lead to financial instability in veterinary practices? I think, sometimes I'm sure some of the owners or managers can identify specific things, but let's kind of bring those together, if that makes sense, Hunter.
Yeah. At a very basic level, I'd say, not beginning, like you just said, Michael, around not doing the bookkeeping, having any sort of planning in place, just not even starting or making an attempt at it because maybe it feels overwhelming. Or maybe you feel like, oh, I don't understand it. And so just not even attempting, I would say, would be a very common of what I see the most is just not having anything in place or not putting a priority on it, because revenue is growing and I can see on any given day, maybe there's a little bit of money in my bank account. And so I'm running the business off of those things. So I would say that would be number one. Is not making that attempt. Number two are doing the bookkeeping, but again, just really not having the plan in place and making some decisions that you don't fully understand the impact of. Common ones here are taking too much money out of the business and not understanding that maybe there's a tax payment down the road. That needs some money set aside, or maybe there's some investment in personnel or equipment that you would like to make, or maybe it's not taking the money out of the business, but it's maybe making a key purchase that you didn't maybe fully understand the impact of. So a common one could be, well, I was renting my building, I decided to buy it. And didn't really understand if my cash flow could support the debt payment that was going to come with that. So there's, key things like that end up happening. I would say, if I had to choose one scenario that happens most frequently is somebody has a really great year, gets really excited and either makes a key purchase or takes a bunch of money out of the company and totally forgets that there's a tax consequence with having a great year. And then has to take, I've seen it where people have to take out a loan to then cover the taxes of the prior year. And then it's a discouraging start to a new year because now your cash flow is going to make debt payments, and so really what leads to something like this, I would say, just not taking these steps or having these functions in place. And then on the other side, things that are beyond our control, like COVID. You can't necessarily plan for something like that or, foresee some of those things coming, even, a simple emergency fund or a few months of expenses set aside don't necessarily prepare for something like that. And so, there's the unexpected, and then there's the maybe lack of preparation on the front side as well.
Yeah, that's great. I think I call it the cigar box strategy. I was a lender for a development corporation here in Canada, and I lent into the tourism and manufacturing field, and we were second tier lenders, but we would, people would we'd forecast and stuff, and they never hit them ever.
Yeah.
And then when they started running into difficulty, they'd come and we were partnering with primary financial institutions. They come and they need help. We've got no track record to say that we can jump into this with you. We're fixed rate lenders. We're not partners. We're not equity partners in this. So I said to the clients, I said, why don't you do forecasts that you actually think you can achieve? Why don't you actually do forecasts that you can actually celebrate the wins with your team? Yeah. Why don't you do a forecast that you can have fun with and can line up to what you're passionate about with what you're doing? And and you just said, if and all of a sudden, the bank I had a client who ran into some difficulty. They got a huge new client. They needed an awful lot of working capital that they didn't have. And the bank jumped in, even though there was some proven track record. And I think that's the other thing is that what you were talking about when you're doing the forecast is the idea that it's gonna bring you a peace of mind. It's gonna bring you capacity to celebrate why you're in this and what you love about it. I mean, we are in it to make money. Our system works on money, but I think it's more. And I know in the veterinary world, I think it's even more. It's easier to see. Is we're really focused on prosperity, aren't we? Which is financial for sure. But it's relational, it's spiritual, it's physical, and it's emotional. It's the wholeness, the holistic, that word holistic. And this industry is so much about that. But we get caught, we just put the blinders on and the cigar box principle is just simply whatever money is, I've got lots of money in the box, I can spend it.
Yeah.
As you say, but the tax bill's not in there yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that forecasting is, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, Hunter.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just going to say, you said something that was so key too around why don't you create a plan that actually aligns with, what you'd be excited to see? I think, this is where, sometimes when you do have the planning, people can get it really wrong because they create a plan based off what they think they can achieve revenue wise. But they're not necessarily considering all the trickle down effects from that of, what effect does it have on my lifestyle in order to go achieve that revenue? Is that what I really want to see? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. What effect does that have on my family? What effect does that have on my, personal income? And so, one thing I try to encourage the small businesses is, hey, make your business goals more based off your personal goals rather than I just want to grow bigger and bigger and bigger, and I think they're going to be when they get that right, they're a lot more excited about what they're doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's because lifestyle is because we're running a business, because we have a passion, we still have our lifestyle, whatever, how we define that. But
Yeah.
when stress, what happens when you get into these financial, stress hijacks your lifestyle
Yeah.
and you lose
Yep.
context, and suddenly fear starts to become your best friend and your worst enemy. And in our case, we're talking about, as big pastors, we know that the definition of fear is believing what you cannot see will come to pass, and of course you're afraid of that. But
Yeah.
guess what? The definition of faith is the same thing, and
Yeah.
you can choose one of those. But I think
Yeah.
I want to come back to something you said about the idea of just people is really bookkeeping, and that's really to get to this point where you've had that guy who's 13 years or whatever without
Hmm.
numbers or accounting. Is bookkeeping, is it really optional? Is it something? Is it an elective in terms of operating cost, or is it just would you own your buildings and have no fire insurance on it, water insurance? You know,
Yeah.
so why wouldn't you have with your business? Why wouldn't if you think of accounting as insurance, but
Yeah.
taking it beyond just the protection of the cash flow and the integrity of your numbers and being viable, but what about you personally? That it's actually
Yes.
it's a health insurance.
Yep.
This account
Yeah.
and I think often people, just because we don't understand it, or there's a little thing, well, it's going to cost me too much.
Yeah. Yep.
What is too much, and what are you measuring it against?
100%. Yeah. I mean, some people, they approach the bookkeeping as, I know I have to get it done so that I can submit taxes. And what we really encourage people is approach it with a sense of, no, this needs to be done so that I can understand what's going on in my business. It does prepare me for taxes. It does meet my minimum requirements of what needs to happen. And for sure, it needs to happen at some level. But get financials together that show your business model and show how your last month and last year performed against your business model that you hope to see, and really use it as a tool and investment. To make those good decisions and good moves that make sense for your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of brings me around to the next question, Hunter, in that
Yeah.
let's just think about the idea that um, think about the concept of recovery, and
Yeah.
like we don't necessarily have to lose everything, but
Yep.
we can. I know for myself, I've been right to the wall. I mean, I literally have. They were gonna. I was behind a rent enough that they were going to take the property, and it was just, and I had,
Sure.
but I was able to sort some things out. But the key was that I had somebody alongside me that understood the steps to recovery. It's
Yeah.
like somebody who is struggling in an addictive world. They there's a, they might go to a 12-step program, which is really about steps to recovery, and through a fellowship and identifying with one each other. What would that look like in a business to have somebody who has the steps of recovery for you in a relationship that can create this kind of agenda-free space for you to have a conversation about the very things that keep you up at night? And
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
see your kind of role, what you're talking about. I don't think we traditionally look at accountants more as, oh, they do the numbers or they do that. Well, I'm glad my doctor doesn't just do the surgery. He actually goes and studies and learns and grows and all those things too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so the question is kind of, what, if I was going to put all that together, is what key financial strategies can practice owners or managers implement to ensure a sustainable recovery? And that's you may want to unpack that term a bit, Hunter.
Yeah. I mean, sustainable recovery. So to define that, what I would say a sustainable recovery is, or just even running a sustainable business, is growing revenue at a realistic number while managing your cash flow and profitability that it heads in a direction that accomplishes your goal. And that's the key, right? There's those three elements of like, well, I'm
Beautiful.
growing revenue, I have the cash flow and profitability, but is this even there's like this fourth element of, is this even heading somewhere that I want to see? And so that is what I would describe as sustainable recovery, a realistic growth number that provides realistic cash flow and profitability that heads towards the goal. So what are some of the strategies to maybe implement to do that? I'll speak first on two books that I would certainly recommend people read if they haven't already. I have one behind me here, Traction. This has been a great framework, even for our firm, of kind of the system. I think, the system that they run off is called EOS, and just a system for how to have meetings and how to set goals and how to, take those steps. So even be a step beyond financials, I would certainly recommend reading Traction. And then the other book, E-Myth, which has a whole lot to do with what we've talked about here today as well. And so I'd read those books. And then again, I would do a lot of the things we've talked about here around getting good numbers in place that you're reviewing regularly. If you need help understanding those, having a team member who can help explain those and who can help you create a plan around those. And to do that on a regular cadence, work that into your meeting cadence of reviewing those goals that you're setting and comparing that against what's actually happening, I think would be a very important financial practice. And then, in terms of a strategy, what I would do before making any big financial decision is really just pause and kind of run that financial decision through everything we just talked about of, all right, if I plugged this into the forecast or the financial model, what is it going to look like? I would have my, lifestyle and, personal goals written down. Okay, well, if it looks like that, does that line up here? So, to give you an example, when me and my partners started this firm, I think my mindset very much was, well, I gotta grow this firm to a certain size and then sell it in 5 years. That seems to be what everybody does. But when you actually run that through a financial model, you realize, oh wow, if I'm going to accomplish that revenue goal, I'm going to have to take a lot of outside funding or a lot of debt in order to pump cash flow into the business, to hire the personnel early, to be able to grow the business, to do the work. And that's a lot of risk. That's going to take a lot of my time. And hopefully we achieve it. Otherwise, we're going to be in a really bad spot with a lot of debt. And oh, wait, over here, I say I'm a family man and I have 4 kids and, I want to be involved in my church and my daughter's soccer league and all of these things. And so how it doesn't reconcile, you know what I mean? And so, really when we're talking financial strategy, it's just thinking through those things of, does the personal life and the business life reconcile? Are you doing the basic steps in order to grow a sustainable business? And I would always challenge people to have a long-term mindset, of not just what you can maybe accomplish in the next 5 years, but what could you accomplish if you did this for a decade? Would you like to see, what would that look like? If you had that same growth goal and maybe stretched it out another 5 years, could you have a better lifestyle all along the way? And so those are some things I get really excited about.
Yeah, I can tell. That's beautiful. Yeah, you talk about this idea of accomplishing your goal, and I think that's an interesting, our world is focused on goals, which are very transactional in nature. It's all about what we do and how we do it. Yet every organization has 3 spaces. It has the transactional, which is what we do and how we do it, and that's where our goals are, where our mission is, and our planning and all that stuff. But then we have this other part, this relational space, which is who we are and why we matter, which is connected to our vision, our passion, our values, underpin all that. And and I see it all the time, when those 2 spaces are not working well together, that's where conflict exists. That's where all the unhealthy conflict comes in an organization, and that third space starts to hijack the others and push them out. And there's numerous examples of companies we've seen. We could name many of them, like a GM, when they built all their silos and ran out of cash because they were so transactional, and they lost sight of the relationship with the people. And conversely, if it's all about people and having fun, at some point you just run out of money and get nothing done. So there's this beautiful balance. And I think in that goal, it's about, if your goal aligns to what you were saying, that your goal aligns to your passion. What are you passionate about?
Yeah.
As it relates to, we always work in our coaching world in 4 channels: personally, for family, for business, and for community. And those 4, and then here's the piece that I think that we miss and what you've been talking about. But I like being unexpectedly delighted.
Yeah.
Like I don't really want to live always on the edge of not enough or not that.
Yes.
Or be anxious for this. We talked about the scriptures earlier. Be anxious for nothing. This idea that how can I set myself up to be unexpectedly delighted? And in turn, we want to unexpectedly delight people that are closest to us, our family, our kids, our family, our peers, our work partners. And how does that look like? And so it suddenly moves this. So suddenly the idea of transactionally of flipping the company or doing this. And what's really cool, I think, Hunter, is in the veterinary medicine world, there's just this beautiful underlying passion connected to animals that's connected to people, because in North America they're not animals, they're family members, and we're pet parents. And this idea, this community is set up to operate like that, yet often it just kind of is a mirror image of everything else. And it starts with and because things that are happening, the tension and the financial anxiety. What we're really saying here, what I hear you're saying, is that if you can actually realign what's important by dealing with some of the things that are important, and so they don't keep you up at night, and you can start having fun with what you do again.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
I mean, 100%. I mean, so many businesses are run off of, and so many people are pursuing this goal that they made up in their mind. It has nothing to do with much of anything besides, hey, I think this would make me feel and look successful, and that would be where I want to go. And they drive themselves until they get there, in order to do that. Right. And of course, goals take hard work, and hard work's a good thing, but just live the lifestyle you want now, and be content with it, and be excited about the cool things you're doing in your practice, and that you're doing for animals and their owners, and just do that now and enjoy the process.
Absolutely.
And you may find that the goal comes a lot sooner when you're enjoying the process all along the way.
Or sometimes it changes, it
changes.
It moves into something that you realize that you were doing something for a purpose that was less than. I always say, how do you take 80% of what you do and focus on 20% of what you're great at? And I think veterinarians and practices have got that figured out too. But I think I got it, although just watching our time, but I want to, if you've got I'd love to hear a couple of examples or lessons you learned from helping healthcare practices overcome financial challenges.
Key lessons, key things. The lessons are it's just an important thing to just start some of these things we're talking about around good financial practices, because they can make a huge difference. To give you a very practical example, we helped a health clinic grow from 1 to 30 practitioners within their space. And so they, at certain points, though, they were really struggling cash flow wise. They did this all over the matter of a couple years. And so, again, just like I was giving with the example with our firm, right, they had to inject a lot of outside cash flow to do that. And they took some pretty high interest loans in order to do that. And again, just developing the financial discipline of some of these practices allowed them to pay off those loans, consolidate some of that debt to a more reasonable interest rate, and ultimately manage their cash flow. And so That's a very practical lesson, but the discipline of just doing these things regularly is a very powerful practice for any business owner.
Excellent. Thank you, Hunter. I think with our time is coming to an end, and so I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping up. I want to say thank you, Hunter, for joining us today and sharing your insights and talking to us about saving struggling veterinary practices and a lot of other pieces as well. That was really exciting. And if I was to sum it up, I'd say you've made the complex simple, the hidden visible, and the difficult easy, and then the passion reappear. And I think, that there's a holistic piece to this that we deserve. Life is too short to be focused on all the things that take away from us rather than add to us. So thank you for reminding us that today, Hunter. I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We cannot do what we do without you. If you like our podcast, please share it with your friends and colleagues. What a great opportunity for you to set somebody else up for success. And please don't forget to leave us a review. We love reviews, and they will help other doctors, managers, and practice owners to find us. Thank you for the privilege of your time, and until next time, keep striving for excellence and making a positive impact in the lives of your patients and pet parents. Wishing all of you an amazing week ahead.